So some upshot, like the upshot of all this is that even though there's like a macro cycle on top of everything, individual industries, particularly ones with long-lived assets, right? Assets, fleets, populations, however you want to think of it, they have from time to time secular changes that make them go away, but more commonly cycles where suddenly everything is old and you need to replace it. Or, oh my God, everybody just bought a locomotive. We did WobTech in real time in 2015. Right? You had just had congestion. Everybody bought real equipment. You were going to have years. I mean, these are long-lived assets. They're not going anywhere. Nobody buys a locomotive because they want one, right? You buy it because you needed to replace it, or you needed one to spare, or whatever it is. So if you can get the long cycle right, if you can get everyone just bought a locomotive. No one's going to buy a locomotive for 15 years. Because basically nobody really needs one. There's excess capacity around. You're going to get a WobTech right? WobTech is still below where it was in 2015, just like Alstom is still below where it was in 2008. So if you can get the long cycle, the major cycle, or a Samsung Heavy, right, also below where it was basically forever, you can get a lot of other things right. So that's the key thing to get. I think even more important than knowing, you get the sector weight right, and then you can get the individual names within it right. You can get significant alpha. Like it is, I think, the way to, if you're asking like how do you handle industrials? I think that's the best way to handle industrials. And I know that creates a mess for conglomerates, right? It's very rare you can get a conglomerate. We got Oshkosh, right? It's quasi-conglomerate, a mini conglomerate, where everything lines up, but mostly it doesn't perfectly. The secular changes are less frequent. But they can be huge alpha, right? Like Alstom is huge alpha. Automation, electric vehicles, work from home are the ones we did here, but there's also grid storage. I think a big one coming that nobody is really thinking about is eVTOL. I know that we have Blade and whatever, but the reality is that people are flying these electric helicopters around. Solid state batteries make that entirely obvious. Other types, even with current batteries, it's entirely obvious. They're going through certification now. I think that's a new mode of transportation that people are missing and is genuinely interesting. So basically, if you get those two things right as the first step in our process in the industrials analysis, first, they're also really fun to work on. Like it's much more interesting to sit around and try and understand grid storage very often than it is to, model small differences in industrial production. So we spend a lot of time in reviewing that. So if you're interested in these kinds of topics, we do fuel cells, we do all kinds of things. Industrials Pro is, we put a lot of this material out. The big stuff goes to Industrials Pro. And it's, I think, well worth a subscription if you have the interest in trying to understand how to handle a difficult sector, a sector that has a lot of alpha and a lot of diversity better. And so answering that tweet from 2 weeks ago, this is, I think, a good first step in the industrials process.